Hello to all, I'm here today in the Tier 10 Premium Japanese Cruiser, the Yoshino, available in the armory for coal. So this is a pseudo-premium reward ship at Tier 10. We have pure Tier 10 matchmaking, and we're on the map of Crash Zone Alpha, and the mode is Domination. So the Yoshino appears as the Japanese offering into the game for supercruisers, that is the large cruisers. First introduced by the Kronstadt, then Stalingrad, then Alaska, and then Azuma. And so this is in fact the Tier 10 version of the Azuma. As some of you might know if you're tracking the history, the Azuma was originally introduced as a Tier 10, but was down-tiered to Tier 9 because Wargaming felt it wasn't quite powerful enough to match up to the Stalingrad. And as a result, they introduced the Azuma at Tier 9 and made a Tier 10 variation of it called the Yoshino to take its place. So this is the Tier 10 reward ship as it appears in the game. Now, stat-wise, it's a supercruiser, so it has a fairly healthy hit point pool of 61,800. Now, this is still less than the Stalingrad and less than the Kronstadt, but is a tiny bit beefier than her younger sister, Azuma, at Tier 9. Gun-wise, she has an ABX layout, three triple 310mm turrets, 2 forward, 1 to the rear. So 310mm is just over 12 inches. I think it's 12.1 or 12.2 in terms of imperial measurements. But anyhow, you have the supercruiser caliber as I angle. And so this gives you obviously quite a bit of firepower against a wide variety of targets. Now 305s do pen a wide variety of surfaces. I believe 305 over 6, so they have a base penetration of just about 50mm of penetration, and you can amplify this with IFHE to go up by 33%, so 33% of 50 to something like 64mm of penetration, which means you can get these guns to pen basically anything you want with the application of IFHE. This is relevant, of course, because this is a Japanese cruiser, and as a Japanese cruiser, she has Japanese shell alpha. Now, the Japanese cruisers have always had fairly impressive high explosive shells, and the Azuma is no different. She has the exact same guns as her sister, the Azuma, with the exception that she has a slightly shorter reload. Her base reload is 18 seconds as opposed to the Azuma's 20. So same gun performance. The AP is relatively fine, but there's nothing special about it as compared to the HE, and so there's nothing too much to talk about. Now, what differentiates her from her sister is, of course, what I'm doing now, these torpedo tubes. Now, she has Arago-esque torpedo tubes mounted in the midsection of her ship. She has 2 quad mounts per side, and there are two optional modules for the torpedoes. You can take the standard set, which are the 12 km Shimakaze F8s, I want to say F8s that you're familiar with on the Zao. And these are the default option, and the other module is the other Shimakaze torpedo, the 20 km long-range Shimakaze torpedo, as you see me shamefully slide along the border while I shoot the Montana. He's on fire. I should really switch over. You can see that he's also quite saturated in his midsection as my HE shell hits him for just 500 damage. So these are 20 km torpedoes that I'm using. I'm using the long-range variant. And this is because you don't really want to get close enough to optimally use the 12 kms. So your detectability range by sea, if you go full concealment build, as I am, is 11.9. So you can just barely stealth torpedo, technically, though I wouldn't say that you really can. GK does take a pot shot at my last known location, which is going to be potentially painful, because I am relatively thinly armored for a supercruiser, unlike the Alaska or Stalingrad. So the Azuma, one of her main issues that kept her out of Tier 10 was the fact that she was covered entirely in 25mm plate. And this was a problem, of course, because 25mm gets overmatched by basically everything inside her matchmaking bracket. The only battleship that won't overmatch her inside the bracket is the, as of yet to be introduced, Odin with her 305s as a battleship. But otherwise, everything else overmatched her. You can see my zoning torpedoes going endlessly for 20 km. Does miraculously hit that, what's it called, the pushing Montana, which is funny. Continuing to just send shells out. Haven't had any impressive salvos, but the HE, I assure you, is very impressive. Good fire chance and good shell alpha. Even against a heavily armored 50mm midsection of the GK, for example, I just pen it all over. Now the IFHE build that exists to pen 60mm armor is of course for the newly, or relatively newly introduced Kremlin, which has 60mm external plates. Set another fire. That salvo and 5k alpha again, showing off that impressive alpha. Montana here showing broadside. I could honestly use the armor piercing, so I'm going to switch over to the armor piercing. It's nothing special, doesn't have any improved angles like the Stalingrad or Alaska, and the alpha, well, like, serviceable at 8.5 is nothing to write home about. Unfortunately, the Montana does angle a little bit, which means I'm probably going to have to go for superstructure here. I reckon he'll probably ricochet if I aim anywhere else, but you can see the alpha's not bad, 6k with the 4 pens and 2 overpens. Remember, the GK was recently on fire. I set him on fire twice. So I'm going to look to just set him alight again, and you can see me just kiting, very standard Japanese cruiser gameplay. Now, unlike the Azuma, as I was mentioning earlier, but I stopped, the Azuma's problem was that she's covered in 25mm all over. The Yoshino is very similar, a large section of 25mm bow and stern. However, her midsection is 30mm, which allows you to bounce 406s, and basically anything that's not a Yamato, a Republic, or an Ohio, or a 457 Conqueror, also known as a Thunderer, is going to probably take some amount of shells. You can see me here using the excellent torpedo arcs on the midsection torps. And maintain fire, try and get a follow-up fire. I should probably shoot that Montana next salvo though. You can see him giving me a fair bit of broadside. I'm giving a fair bit of broadside right now, just going to send some zoning torps, not at that guy, but at that guy in the distance. Giving a lot of broadside here, so this is dangerous, I would say. I could well get punished, someone's looking at me after all. And it looks like there's some other ships in the cap taking it. Such as that small lens, which I should shoot at. Although, maybe I should shoot at this bigger threat, this GK first. Looks like he's turning. You see me there bouncing some of his 406s, or 420s, I don't really care which, off the side. Another 7k HE chunk, already up to 6-digit numbers. Like most Japanese cruisers at high tier, she's an excellent damage farmer. He does turn back in, unfortunately. Maybe I can demonstrate this AP against this Montana instead. He's fairly distant, so I don't expect to citadel him, switching back to high explosive. But I can still get pretty heavy pen damage against him if he's negligent. Don't quite manage to ricochet that. Unimpressive salvo against that Montana. Gonna make sure this guy dies. My zoning torpedoes heading towards the spawn smoke. Have them fairly contained here. Set another fire, which forces a damage control, but he'll die to the HE Alpha next salvo. Remember, I pen 60mm armor. He doesn't have anything greater than 50. Other than his belt, of course, and his turret armor, so enough of these shells are going to connect. One of my long-range torpedoes, zoning torpedoes, does hit the Montana again, kind of demonstrating how you just throw out the torpedoes and, as a zoning tool more than anything, and hope that they hit the appropriate targets. Damage is quickly climbing. I've been shooting at a lot of battleships. I'm basically the last ship alive here on this flank. Just holding it down, being very annoying. Like the Azuma before her, my rearward angles are excellent. Very safely able to bring all 3 turrets to bear, and with minimal movement and adjustment, I can angle my hull appropriately to just farm my way to the top. Now the dispersion is not great. It's not quite supercruiser dispersion. It's actually slightly better than the Graf Spee formula. It's just a tiny bit tighter than both the Stalingrad and Alaska in terms of the actual dispersion formula that's used. But I wouldn't say it's much more than a minor improvement. I haven't used my other side's torpedo 2s, but you should remember that even with Torpedo tubes on Japanese cruisers, they are a supplemental weapon. Use them only when the bread and butter of the ship, the guns, are not available. Or when you have the option to use them. You have to excuse me. Torpedoes for the Montana, he honestly should be shooting me, but I don't know why he's not. He's getting a fair bit of broadside, so I'm going to switch to armor piercing again and see if I can't do anything. He's getting pretty close, and getting close makes it harder to angle. You do want to play the Yoshino at range, even though she has some modicum of armor, unlike her sister the Azuma, which basically gets penned all over. He's going to switch over to GK instead because he's giving a better broadside. See if I can't demonstrate the armor piercing. So 10k to a broadside GK, not bad at all. As I said, the 8.2k shell alpha is nothing to scoff at. He's still nice and flat for me, so give him some more AP. He's eating a flood anyway, so maybe he damage controls. This time less impressive, 4 non-pens and 1 ricochet. He's shooting at me, but I think that's just his secondaries, the bigger shells being the large caliber secondaries. Charge reverse is sluggish, unfortunately. I'm gonna fire at him just to make sure he dies. Nope, don't have to. So at this point I'm gonna use expert loader to switch back to high explosive. No point shoving my AP into that angled Montana. My torps for him hit something else yet again, allowing me to breach close to 200,000. Maybe I can squeeze it out. He is flooding from me, I think. Don't quite get the kill, however. What I haven't talked about at all is the range. The range is obviously quite impressive, and she has access to a spotter plane or fighter in addition to that, which allows her to have great reach over these high-tier maps. That Montana appears to have been reversing, but now he's moving forward based on the minimap, so I expect those shells to miss, but as you can see the shell velocity is not bad at all, unlike the Alaska, just shy of 200,000 now. That came before her. I guess I should have shot earlier. I was talking about the high shell velocity, maybe all my allies miss. Nope, they do get the kill and clean up the game. In a very tame but also very standard Yoshino game, just playing the perfect spot for the Yoshino is solo guarding a flank, along with another spotter or with meat shield to draw fire. So in this case, I used the 2 battleships that were with me to basically soak up all the damage. Well, I just farmed my way up, and because the enemies were pushing up into that cap over and over, I was able to just hold the cap quite easily by just staying at a nice safe range and slamming fire into them. Though the battleships did get a bit too close to me, but they chose not to fire at me, so I was able to, thankfully, just keep shoving shells into them. Anyhow, just shy of 200,000, 127 shell hits. You'll note a lot of non-pens here, but mostly just pen damage. No citadels in this case, didn't get to shoot at any cruisers. Unfortunately, 3 torpedo hits with the zoning torpedoes. 1 actual kill, 6 fires, 2 floods, 3 defender ribbons, and a spotting ribbon. Very tame game. Team score-wise, not even that high. Only 1800 because I was mostly shooting battleships after all. And if you go to a detailed report, of course, obviously most of my damage comes from HE Alpha, and in this case, a whole bunch of dot damage as well, but the AP does come into use on occasion. Anyhow, with that said, I'm gonna take her into another quick game, see if we can't smash some more enemies for you, and get a more representative or varied game. So loading up, so we're top tier here, in a tiered 8 to 10 game. There's an RF division on my side, which is promising. These boys are not too bad, typically. Anyhow, ships to worry about, Yamato. Now Yamato pens through that 30mm midsection armor. We were using the bounced GK shells very easily. But other than that, there's only 3 battleships to burn, a whole bunch of destroyers, and a whole bunch of cruisers. But I am still at heart a supercruiser, so even when there's no battleships to burn, well, I don't need to be burning battleships. I function perfectly well against cruisers as well. The HE is pretty target agnostic. Great against destroyers, great against cruisers. Same goes with the torpedoes. They're not deep waters or anything, they're just long range 20 kms. Now the 20 kms do have very long reload and they can be dangerous, especially because the Yoshino plays along the back line. You do need to be careful when you're shooting out those torpedoes because it's very, very easy to hit your allies if you're not aware of where they're operating, and that's why you ideally want to operate on a flank with only a couple other allied ships, where you can leverage your very Japanese traits of good concealment, relatively good rudder shift, and powerful high explosive, to slowly whittle down an enemy shove and kind of solo hold while the rest of the bulk of your force hopefully rolls over the other side with a numbers advantage. So loading up here, the most grease, the most domination, gonna just run up along the flank, nice and slow. Soft stat wise, we haven't had a carrier game with the Yoshino yet, but her A is alright. I would say it's decent. Slightly better than her sister Azuma's. Unlike the Azuma, she has a mid-range aura. She has the 40mm Bofors Chi. Although these might be 25mm triples. I'm spotted by the destroyer in the cap, quite obviously. Giving pretty much full broadside to this Yamato, so I do have to be careful not to talk too much. He's moving kind of slow. Shells are definitely for me, so hopefully I can complete this full turn. Zhao pops up. Didn't quite complete the turn, but I'm lucky enough to only eat 6,000 in terms of pens. My next Zhao was obviously going to be for the Z. Gonna pop my spotter, not for range, but to make sure I have the right vantage point. Gonna see if he gets spotted again, as is typical. Looks like he was slowing down right there. Nope, looks like he accelerated after, so probably gonna miss. And indeed I do. Low HP Zhao over there, and by low HP I mean his HP is low, not that he is particularly low. Gonna switch to armor piercing. He's pretty flat. You can see my shells are fairly fast. High explosive to splash him once, but he's turning away with his Zhao rudder shift. But it's fine, I'll wait for a better target. Bring my relatively sluggish turrets to bear. Hindenburg's pretty flat. Unfortunately, my shells are currently occluded by that mountain, but I'll wait. I'm gonna wait a second longer for the rear gun, because the mountain indicator doesn't always tell you if it's all guns not occluded or if it's just forward guns. My shells do land onto the deck armor, but just overpens for me, unfortunately. So it looks like we actually found the weak flank, which is not where I want to be. I want to be at a strong flank with lots of targets, where I can make use of my zoning torpedoes. So with that said, since I know that this is going to be the weak flank of the enemy, I'm going to start turning myself around. There's no reason to stick around here. Shells go wide on the Yamato, but that's fine. Because I started turning, I did occlude my rear turret, but that's alright. Just working with my two front turrets is enough. I'm just looking to try and set fire from range. Now the heal, unlike the Azuma, is a standard heal. The Azuma has the enhanced cooldown, or reduced cooldown. Heal of just about 40 seconds. This is a standard heal with a reload time of 78. Looks like shells go wide on Zhao, so only strip him with one, or straddle him with one, but still a nice 800 damage, I guess. Nothing else to shoot at, so as I come around, I'm gonna bring my turrets to bear onto the Hindenburg. Looks like he's turning in, so they're gonna miss. Looks like we're doing a good job of dispatching DDs, so this game should be fairly simple. Guns are reloaded. I'm at a section of mountain where I should be able to fire. Looks like he's making a turn. Oh, unfortunately I waited too long, so my front guns did end up getting clipped by the mountain. One shell makes it over, 510. Looks like he's kind of saturated, to be honest. My shells do 5,100, so each raw penetration should be doing just under 2k. Torpedoes from the Z-46 in the distance, but they'll range out long before they touch me. There we go, that's what we're looking for. Now I am broadsiding the Yamato, and the Hindenburg's also firing at me. He damage controlled my fire, so let's see if we can get a follow-up, but really what I need to be looking at is that Yamato over there. He's obviously going to fire at us. I get a follow-up fire. That's all I really care about. Kind of want to fire on the Yamato because he's a better farm target, but I really should put damage out onto the Zhao when possible. He's a low HP cruiser. Just tracking to see how my shells are doing. Targeted by 4, huh? So it's Yamato, Hindenburg, maybe the Z, maybe the Zhao? Hard to say, 2 no. I don't really care if one of the people targeting me, oof, as I make use of my rudder shift to do a quick duck and dodge. I don't really care if one of them is a Z because I'm moving away constantly. Double fire onto the Zhao. A nice chunk. That should prompt a damage control. He's close to the edge of my range, but my range is exceptionally long. Longer even than the Azuma, which already has quite impressive range, even without her spotter. And I get a follow-up fire onto the Zhao, so he'll enjoy burning for a little bit. Not doing as hot in terms of the damage department this game, you'll note, but I have not been farming battleships. So those shells, I assume, are for the Buffalo over there. My allies seem to have stymied the push in the west quite well. And there's still quite a few enemy ships which have yet to be spotted, which is interesting. He's in cover for the most part. Yamato there on the edge of my range. Haven't been firing torpedoes at all because I'm playing the back line this game, just slowly crossing the map still. Gonna keep my bow pointed at this Yamato while I fire on this Yamato, but do note that I am in a bit of a dangerous crossfire. It's very hard for me to angle against both, so if both of them choose to fire on me, I could be potentially in trouble. Just doing a quick sweep with my eyes. Yamato's pushing in. Quick sweep with my eyes. Looking at the minimap as well as I sweep the guns. You could of course lock the guns instead while you sweep, so they don't waver. Reduce any turret rotation problems, but the turret rotation isn't that poor on the Yoshino that you have to absolutely lock the turrets. Zhao pops up at the edge of my range. Perfect target, as I mentioned. He's squishy. Now if I was a battleship, I could load anticipatory AP, but I don't quite have a good enough firing solution on him. I'm not confident that he's always going to stay broadside to me. He might in fact respond to me firing upon him with high explosive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So quints means there's the Shimakaze, of course. If I just checked matchmaker, I would know there's only 2 destroyers. And since I know the Z is prowling somewhere behind us, I need to be careful. Now, I am kind of close to the Yamato at this point, so I'm going to do something a bit dangerous. These guns are facing me, however. You'll note, but he doesn't appear to be looking at me. This is a very dangerous turn, for the record. He's looking at me now, but I'm going to fade into the concealment. I saw the Shimakaze over there, so I knew where he's going. I'm going to just torp his position in case he hard reverses. I'm fully broadside. He's maybe waiting for me to pop up, but I'm waiting for him to fire. See how greedy you are. He fires, so I fire. Now I'm giving broadside to this Yamato, but it's fine. I think he's preoccupied with my Yamato over there. Just looking for a fire. Still giving a fair amount of broadside, so every 1.2 reload cycles of mine, he gets to fire, so he should be reloaded now. Ducked out of what probably was the Massachusetts shell fire. He's straightening out, right into my really horrible concealment 20-kilometer torpedoes, but just because they're horridly concealed doesn't mean they can't hit you if you just glide straight. Get my fire. That's gonna keep firing to make sure we secure the kill. At this point he's already dead to my torpedoes, but just gotta fire to make sure we confirm the kill. Yamato on this side in the meantime was basically doing nothing to me, so I'm very glad of that. I am gonna control this gap. Now they're not likely to hit very much as the enemy Shimakaze glides into the cap. Note that we're still only even on points. The enemy has been contesting this other sea cap that we controlled earlier for quite a while. Zhao torpedoes heading in for my Yamato. Our rune does drop. We might need to get a little bit closer into the thick of things. And in order to do so, I need to get rid of my primary threat. Now the only threat that can penetrate my 30mm armor, remember the Massachusetts is still on my side, is the Yamato. So let's eliminate the Yamato and then I can play much more aggressively. Now I said this is a bit of a backline ship, and it is, but it doesn't mean you can't use your big supercruiser health pool to get into the fight. It's late game, I still have every single heal. Ooh, those are some ugly straddles. Oh, looks like he's slowing down. We kill a destroyer, which is good, but there's still a Hindenburg in our cap. Nope, he's ducking and weaving, dodging, shall we say. Just dodge. Don't want to use my spotter for this. I just want to hopefully keep him lit and burn him down. Do have to be careful. Shimakaze stalking me. Based on the long range at which I acquired them, they might be 20s, but they could also be 12s. Shimakaze torpedoes are just very easy to spot in general. Don't quite finish the Yamato myself, but someone does kill him. Can I dodge and duck and weave? Yes, I can. Alright, so they have complete cap control now, but we're not that far down on ships, so maybe we can shoot our way into this. The Cossack is fairly low, however. I might have stayed on the back line for a bit too long, that would be my personal critique. It's kind of hard to push in with the Shimakaze shadowing me, but that's no excuse. No real excuse anyway. So let's get this show on the road. We'll move toward the Hindenburg. My Montana is not that healthy, so I'm basically the strongest ship left on my team, aside from the Minotaur. It would be nice to be running Hydro. I can equip Hydro, of course, but I am running defensive fire in this case. Hindenburg shows up. Now, while it'd be nice to like turn my whole ship so I can get all 3 turrets to bear, that might be a bit too greedy. I know I'm charging toward Mass, Zhao, and Buffalo. There are the torpedoes again. Let's see if I can beat them. First set will be beat. Second set, I might take one on the bow here. Yep. I'm gonna clear up a heal. Oh, I wish I'd loaded armor piercing. And a bit of a crossfire here. Can't quite tell what the Buffalo's doing, but I don't have time to look. Is he really gonna stay there? I'm gonna pop my spotter just to make sure. I'm gonna let him slam me with the Zhao AP. You can see the Zhao AP punishing me quite heavily. Now remember, there's a Massachusetts I'm ignoring, but don't have a choice at the moment. Gonna make my full turn. Bring my 3rd turret to bear. Buffalo could punish me, but I reckon he's busy doing other things. Do get a Citadel with my AP onto the Buffalo. Hello, Shimakaze guy. Minimap says you're running, so I'm just gonna slide some torps along the island chain. AP up again. Firing into the broadside. You can kind of hardly see my shells, but there we go. Dispatch him. High explosive for me. Helped my Minotaur out. Those are from the Massachusetts. Or the Zhao, I'm not sure which. Oh, okay, he fades, unfortunately. He's outside of my detection bubble. Massachusetts shells again. Montana will hopefully delete the Hindenburg because we need time. He's too angled for armor piercing. Thankfully, I do have high explosive loaded already. Shells go astray. Oh, spotter plane bug coming into action, keeping me from firing. Gonna fire at last known. Don't really care at this point. I'll fire at anything I can get my hands on. Remember, there's still a Shimakaze here. Hindenburg outbrawls my Montana with shells. Alright then. It's a shimmy, probably launching torpedoes from this angle, so I'm going to continue forward here. And then I'm going to do a hard left. I want to close the distance with the Zhao and reduce the reaction time of any shells. I'm targeted by 4 and RPF'd, so he's closer to me than to the Minotaur, which is interesting. I think I've sailed straight for long enough now. So I'm going to pull into my turn, pop my heel. I could expert loader, but I anticipate he's going to turn in because he did see me AP down that Buffalo. He does slam me pretty hard, but the points tick out. So probably a bit too far back there, but my reluctance to push is, of course, caused by the Yoshino's own weaknesses of being quite vulnerable. Nevertheless, we did manage to farm our way to a fair damage count. 77 target hits, 1 torpedo strike, 3 incaps, 2 ships killed, 7 fires, 1 flood, 3 citadels, 122,000 damage. We're still close to the top, mainly just from farming and surviving. But I would say that this Zhao over here basically managed to do what I was doing, but did it a little better with his superior DPM on his side. My team on the other side did fold a little too quickly. You weren't able to provide the help they probably needed. Maybe if I'd started on the other flank, I could have helped them a little more. But at least that game I got to show off the AP. The AP is obviously still quite potent against broadsiding cruisers. So don't forget to make use of your armor piercing. Credit-wise, this is a tier 10 coal ship, so remember, it has reduced credit income compared to a full-on premium. If you want to make credits, then get the Azuma. She's basically like the Yoshino, but with a little less armor, and no torpedo tubes. Anyhow, I'm gonna head off into port, and I'll show you my recommended modules and my captain build. We went 1 for 1, not atypical for some of my demonstration vids, but it is what it is. Anyhow, consumables first. So take your premium damage control and premium heal. And then here, you can take whichever module you want. Like I said, the A is decent, but nothing special. Don't be deceived by that 90 number. 90 just means it's alright. I personally take defensive fire, but that's more of a choice because when you play the backline, you don't push nearly as much, and Hydro is a lot less useful. Unless you really do grind out a game to late game like that and you have to push into a cap. So, usually carriers will be a bigger threat to you than destroyers, so I take defensive fire. The last slot, of course, is spotter plane or fighter plane. Either is fine, but because, again, of that long-range backline fighting, and because of the fact that I have access to defensive fire, and I'm taking defensive fire, I choose to take spotter plane, not for the extra range, because the Yoshino already has an excellent 21 kilometer base range, but mainly for the extra vantage point for long range shooting to get nice accurate pop shots. Module wise, take main armaments 1. Slot 2, I take tankiness, but you could make an argument for taking either Hydro or defensive AA fire module if you wanted to. Slot 3, aiming systems. Now it is a cruiser, but it is a supercruiser, which means your dispersion pattern is a fair bit worse than standard cruisers, so you do want to tighten it up as much as possible. So aiming systems. Then rudder shift, you could take tankiness as well, but you're not intending on taking or coming up close again, as I mentioned before, so take steering gears to get that better rudder shift time to avoid long-range battleship fire. Concealment systems modification 1 is a very standard choice for slot 5, but there is something to say about taking rudder shift again if you want to play a little more actively and a little less with your concealment, but it does mean you can't play quite as close. So there were some situations over the 2 games where I did get pretty close with my concealment, and I was able to stay that way because I had concealment expert. So take what you want. I prefer concealment, but steering gears modification 3 is perfectly valid. And last but not least, take main battery modification 3. Up the reload on your primary armament, that is your 310mm guns. That is your bread and butter. Don't bother with secondaries, please. Range, you don't need any more range. You have access to spotter plane and 21 kilometer base range, so don't need any more of that. Just a quick overview of the armor. Remember that 25mm bow and stern is a pretty big section. Now the aft does have this aft and armor belt, but it's very small chunks, so don't rely on that. Typically speaking, these sections are just entirely pennable to battleships. Midsection wise, however, you have 30mm deck and 30mm upper belt. Now the lower belt torpedo protection is 25, but that usually just absorbs shells that hit it there. So because you have 30mm midsection deck, this does mean you bounce anything that's not a Yamato, Repub, or any of the 457s, so Ohio, Georgia, Thunderer. Anything other than that, you can bounce the AP. So if you angle well, you have a large section of 30mm armor, which makes you much tankier than your sister, the Azuma. If I switch quickly over to the Azuma, very similar ship. As you can see, similar shape, just no torpedoes, same guns. But the Azuma is coated in uniform 25mm, which is what makes her much squishier. Citadel is raised above the waterline. If I strip away the Citadel protection, you'll see it's very much above waterline, so if you broadside, you will be punished. And it has a slight octahedral shape on the ends, but usually this doesn't matter. people just hit you all over, and if the battleship shell reaches the citadel, you'll typically get penned. There's a tiny slope to it, but it's nothing special. It's basically the same as the Zao, which I can't currently show you because I don't currently own one. Captain-wise, I'm using my Mogami captain. So the Mogami, I play with the 155s, the triple turrets, instead of the twins, and that means she needs IFHE in order to pen things. So I share her captain with the Yoshino, but since the captain is more important for the Yoshino than the Mogami, even though this is my Mogami captain, some of the skills, will be slanted towards the Yoshino. So first off, priority target. Then personally I prefer expert marksman, though she technically doesn't need it, but I like the increased comfort. Then superintendent to get the extra charge of heal, mainly. The other two consumables, it's pretty whatever, you don't usually run out of them, but superintendent for the extra heal for those long grindy games in case you take damage. Although I would argue that in some games you might never use the heal, so you can rethink this skill if you would like. The other option is, of course, if you go more towards your Mogami captain, is to take demolition expert, and then of course you take concealment expert. Now this is the basic build. This is the basic 10-point build that most Japanese cruisers aren't that picky about, but you should go to 12 and take Adrenaline Rush, so I would say this is the standard 12 for Japanese cruisers. Now the other argument for taking Superintendent is, of course, if you do procure the Azuma, her younger sister, the Azuma has the fast reloading Massachusetts heal, if you'll recall. If you quickly go over to Modules Consumables, you'll note that the Azuma's heal has a 40-second reload time, which is obviously extremely powerful, and with Superintendent you can easily burn through all those charges, and of course, because she's much squishier, missing that 30-section midsection, she does tend to take a lot more damage than her sister, the Yoshino. So, Superintendent, more valuable if you're sharing captains. Now from your base 12 points, you take IFHE. This is not only... So, IFHE does reduce your fire chance. However, the reason why it's so good on the Yoshino is because the base fire chance is extremely high. So even with IFHE reducing the fire chance by 3%, the fire chance is 24% still per shell, and you have an 18-second base reload and 9 rifles. And so because of the high base fire chance, that 3% reduction doesn't hurt nearly as much. So take IFHE, that's 16 points, and then for 17 point I would recommend Expert Loader. At this point, you have two choices really. You can take Jack of all trades if you just want reduced cooldown further for your Azuma and Yoshino, or you can take Last Stand. The Yoshino's rudder is fairly durable, but the Azuma and Mogami especially do tend to lose engine and rudder, especially if you take those random citadels that sometimes happen with high tier battleships, sorry as I hit my mic, through your weak 25mm stern armor. Anyhow, that is the Yoshino tier 10 coal ship. She's pretty fun. Between her and her sister, the Azuma, available for free experience, the low price of 1 million free experience, or the low price of a substantial portion of your paycheck. The Yoshino definitely is better, and she does earn her place as a tier 10. But remember that the Yoshino is a reward ship, and so she does make less credits than her younger sister, even though she is quite a bit stronger, so do take your pick. There's plenty of coal offerings in the armory right now. I wouldn't say the Yoshino stands out exceptionally, but if you are a fan of Japanese cruisers and the Japanese cruiser playstyle, the Azuma and Yoshino fit right in, and they play perfectly into that long-range kite and shoot playstyle. As with most Japanese ships, however, they do suffer from being less able to affect the game because of poor armor. The only real way they can affect a game is by slowly burning their way through the enemy, and that isn't always possible depending on how a game pans out. So a great second line or backline support ship if you want to play second line or backline support ships, and she does have the utility of being able to burn anything she wants if you take IFHE. So overall, a worthy tier 10 supercruiser. Not particularly special in terms of playstyle, but definitely very satisfying to set the world on fire. A bit like a Conqueror as a cruiser. The real Mega Zao, if you would prefer. So that'll be that. That's my Yoshino quick review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all later. Cheers!